It's all systems go for the Thank You SABC concert taking place at the Orlando Stadium in Soweto tomorrow. The concert celebrates the 90% local music quota victory that was introduced earlier this year. The concert showcases a wide range of music genres from hip-hop, reggae, Kwaito, house and Maskandi. For more on this, we are now joined, including jazz of course, we are now joined by the legendary jazz musician Hotstix Mabuse, who is with us here. Mr. Mabuse, Hotstix, Brasipo. All right. You've been involved with the industry for many years. I think dating back to the days of Harare and the Beaters and so on. How significant is this drive to play more local music on our radio stations?
Well, I think most important, first of all, let me clear this. I'm not a jazz musician. But having said that, I think we must see this in its context as, you know, what other trends in other countries are. This is a new phenomenon for South Africa, but it's a trend that's everywhere, all over the world. Every country where you go, you find that people celebrate themselves, celebrate their own musicians first, because before they could consider anybody else. And I think we should commend the SABC, in particular, Mr. Mutsoning and his team, for actually having made this decision. Yes, there are challenges in the process, but I think yeah, it's something that's worth celebrating. Okay,
before we go on, let's go back to the issue of how you were referred to as a jazz musician. How do you refer to yourself?
Just a musician.
Music? Just a musician?
I'm a musician, you know. I mean, if I'm expected to play jazz, I'm sure I could do it. If I could play Kwaito, I could do Kwaito, and, you know.
All right. Now, let's speak to the issue of the voices and people who spoke against the 90% local music content on our stations, and how advertisers, there was talk of advertisers pulling out and issues like that. What is your reaction as artists? And this, as you say, in every country that you've almost been to, or countries that you know of, they play and promote their own local music. What does this really mean? If advertisers threaten, or there is a threat of somewhat them pulling out or talk of that?
Well, firstly, let me say I'm not aware of any threats by any advertisers. I'd like to believe that the SABC did engage with, before they made the decision, there was an engagement between the advertisers and the SABC. If at any stage the advertisers feel that perhaps there was a need for them to withdraw, I think they will have to make their case very strong as to what would have been the reason for them to withdraw. Was it because now we no longer play international music, or music, foreign music, if I have to say, or were there any other underlying reasons for advertisers believing that? Because for me, what has happened is that, firstly, it's appreciation of who South Africans are. And secondly, the public has embraced this 90% thing. So we haven't seen, I don't know, I don't have the statistics, but I haven't seen any drop in the listenership of South African radio stations.
Now, just speaking of the public and any drops or anything like that, it seems like everything is on the rise. Let's compare to your local listenership or your local support compared to the international support. Where is it currently in terms of, now that there's 90% local music that's played, or even somewhat, what's the reaction been like internationally? Are you able to compare and just look at how, if there has been improvement compared to local and international access to your...
Well, I wish I understood your question as to what are you referring to the listenership?
To the listenership, and in terms of internationally, for instance. Are you getting the same amount of concerts or performance time as compared to locally? Has there been any improvement in that space?
You mean personally or just in general?
Personally and in general, well, if you know of any other musicians.
For me, I mean, you know, locally there's been quite a number of performances. I mean, there have been many concerts. And besides, I gather I am one of the few privileged musicians who have managed to sustain, you know, oneself through a lot of things that have been happening. But having said that, I have seen a lot of improvement, and I think people psychologically are beginning to understand how important this is. And, you know, to have South African musicians perform as much as they do, a lot of people need to understand that it's not only about music performances. There are many spin-offs, there are many benefits that go through this. Many musicians feed families, you know. If I go on a tour, for instance, how many people do I take with me? You know, I take about 10 people, and besides the musicians that I work with, there are all the road crews, the lighting people. So there is a whole lot of, you know, spin-offs and benefits from this whole exercise. And I don't even believe that international or overseas musicians are complaining, because they have their own wherever they are. And they probably would support whatever is taking place in South Africa.
With the increase of the music that's played, local music that's played on our radio stations, the issue of royalties, the percentage was increased. Have you seen a difference as musicians in the country in terms of the royalty that you get?
We will call on Mr. Mtsweni and say, you've increased the airplay, where is the money?
And how long would that process take?
Well, the process of royalty is something that really depends on the agreements between an artist and a record company, collecting societies and so on. Of course, this would affect the collecting societies, and most of the money, obviously, if people belong to collecting societies, then it's another 3 months, it's 6 months, others in a month. And this is very important, because what happens in the process, once the collecting societies are aware of how much revenue has come through for particular composers, then even, you know, advances are possibilities. People have to feed their families from that. Yeah.
Now, just looking at the SABC and the fact that we're a public broadcaster,
Yes.
do you think, or do you feel that privately owned radio stations should also follow suit and play more local content?
I think, look, this is without any doubt. I mean, for me, first of all, the mandate, what the SABC is carrying out, it's a mandate. It's a mandate. It's a public. They are a public broadcaster, so it is a mandate which they should be carrying, and they're doing that. If independent radio stations believe that it's not something that they wish to follow, then, you know, in other countries would feel a bit sold out. You know, it's people, you know, searching themselves and digging into their own souls as to whether is it a correct thing for them to consider externals as opposed to local. Let me put it this way: if you have your family and you have food in the house, who do you feed first?
Your family first.
Your family first. That's a principle that should be applicable at all costs.
Now, very quickly, the concert taking place this weekend, people are very excited about it. What are people to expect at the show from Hotstix Mabuse?
Well, you know, the unfortunate part, if I may call it unfortunate, they're going to see our faces more than really giving enough music, because there are so many of us, and many of us are going to be saying thank you to the public, thank you to the SABC, and unfortunately we'll only be doing less than 3 songs, and I don't think that is much to look forward to. Yes, we are looking forward to the performance, but at the same time, I love to be on stage for 3 hours, but unfortunately tomorrow I cannot be.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank you
all
so
the best for the concert tomorrow.
Thanks.
That was Hotstix Mabuse sharing his views and excitement ahead of the SABC Thank You concert taking place at the Orlando Stadium tomorrow.